Desperate measures. The eviction notice hit the worn linoleum, a pronouncement of ruin. Sarah's eyes clung to the stark, vermilion final, as if sheer will could transmute it into something benign, an advertisement for discounted groceries, perhaps. But the crimson held, a taunt. 30 days. 30 days to conjure back rent equivalent to 3 months' income, or she and Mikey faced the streets. Mikey! The thought cut deepest. It wasn't merely about her survival. It was about safeguarding her little brother, offering him normalcy, protecting him from a life of transient shelters. She crushed the paper, its fibers resisting the pressure, and flung it toward the overflowing bin. A miss. It landed askew on a greasy pizza box, a stale reminder of better days. Despair, like icy tendrils, constricted her chest. She had to act. The following morning, Sarah was drawn to the manicured lawn across the way. Mr. Abernathy, the elderly neighbor, attended his roses with precise, measured gestures. Shaded by a broad straw hat, gloved hands moving with purpose, he radiated serene contentment. He always offered a warm smile and a wave. A despicable notion began to surface, fighting against her conscience. She observed him for an hour, unease waging war with the gnawing dread of homelessness. He seemed so trusting. So genuinely good. A target. By late afternoon, the plan had solidified, a bitter pill lodged in her throat. Disgusting, she knew. But Mikey's future demanded it. She retrieved the corroded lug wrench from her trunk, the cold steel a stark contrast to her trembling fingers. The dilapidated Civic was strategically parked a block from Mr. Abernathy's residence, a spot chosen for its limited visibility. Inhaling deeply, she knelt beside the front tire. Her jittery hands nearly fumbled the wrench. This was madness. This was wrong. But the vision of Mikey's hopeful gaze blotted out her reservations. With a strained grunt, she slackened the lug nuts. Then, employing the wrench as a fulcrum, she pried the tire loose, letting it sag dramatically. A convincing flat. Perspiration slicked her forehead. She swiped it away, smearing grime. Rising, she brushed off her jeans, and adopted an air of distress, pacing beside the car, casting furtive glances toward Mr. Abernathy's house. He emerged sooner than anticipated, leaving his garden with visible concern etched on his face. "Trouble, dear," he called out, his voice surprisingly robust. Sarah manufactured a damsel-in-distress smile. "Oh, yes," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I have a flat. And I haven't the faintest clue how to fix it." Mr. Abernathy chuckled softly. "Well, now, that won't do. Let's take a look." He ambled toward her, his gaze filled with compassion. Sarah's stomach lurched. This was it. The point of no return. As he drew nearer, she noticed something previously unseen, a faint, almost invisible scar tracing the side of his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. Familiar. A jolt, sudden and sharp, reverberated through her. That scar, where had she seen that scar before? Her heart pounded, a frantic rhythm of impending disaster. She swallowed, her mouth desert dry. He wasn't just some random kind soul. This couldn't be happening. He was mere steps away from the car. A flat tire and a kind face. The wrench slipped in Sarah's sweaty hand, connecting painfully with the lug nut she was trying to loosen. She winced, stifling a groan. That the flat tire was proving more difficult than she'd anticipated. Of course, that was the point, wasn't it? Look helpless. Vulnerable. She glanced up at the house, a neat little bungalow with a meticulously manicured lawn. Mr. Abernathy's house. Still no sign of movement. Maybe she needed to amplify the distress. Another yank at the wrench. This time, the nut budged. Encouraged, she attacked the remaining nuts with renewed vigor, grunting with each turn. The afternoon sun beat down, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. Sweat trickled down her temples, stinging her eyes. She smeared it away with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of grease across her forehead. Perfect. A shadow fell across her. Sarah straightened, feigning surprise. Oh. Hello, she said, her voice trembling slightly, just as she'd practiced. I seem to have a flat. Mr. Abernathy stood there, a gentle smile gracing his weathered face. He was taller than she remembered, his eyes kind and observant. He wore a faded blue work shirt and khakis, his hands calloused but clean. Looks that way, he said mildly. Having some trouble? A little, she admitted, her voice a breathy whisper. I've never changed a tire before. My brother usually does these things. She let the last sentence hang in the air, a silent plea for assistance. He chuckled softly, a warm, rumbling sound. Well, now. It's not rocket science, but it can be a bit tricky. Let me give you a hand. He gestured toward the lug wrench. Mind if I? Sarah stepped back, relieved and acutely aware of the knot forming in her stomach. Oh, would you? I'd be so grateful. She made sure to maintain eye contact, projecting an image of utter helplessness. Mr. Abernathy knelt beside the car, his movement surprisingly spry for a man his age. He tested the wrench, then began to loosen the lug nuts with practiced ease. The rhythmic creaking of metal filled the air. Where are you headed? He asked, his voice casual. Just visiting a friend, Sarah stammered, avoiding his gaze. She busied herself rummaging in her purse, feigning a search for her phone. She lives just down the road. A lie, of course. He grunted in acknowledgement, not pressing further. He worked in silence for a few moments, then gestured to the spare tire in the trunk. Got a jack? Yes, it's in there, she said, pointing vaguely. The guilt intensified, a hot, prickly sensation spreading through her chest. This kind, unassuming man was helping her, and she was planning to, what, exactly? She hadn't even fully thought it through. Mr. Abernathy retrieved the jack and began to position it under the car. His brow furrowed in concentration. The setting sun cast long shadows across the street, painting the scene in hues of orange and gold. The air smelled of exhaust and freshly cut grass. Almost there, he said, his voice low and steady. Sarah watched him, her carefully constructed facade beginning to crumble. Unexpected help. Mr. Abernathy circled the car, his brow furrowed as he examined the flattened tire. The afternoon sun glinted off his silver hair, highlighting the deep lines etched around his eyes. He knelt, his movement surprisingly fluid for a man his age, and ran a gnarled hand over the shredded rubber. Well, now, he murmured, more to himself than to Sarah. That's a proper mess. Looks like you hit something sharp. Sarah bit her lip, her carefully constructed story teetering. Yes, sir, I think so. I don't know how to change a tire. She feigned a helpless flutter of her eyelashes, a tactic that usually worked wonders. Mr. Abernathy straightened, a strange light in his eyes. No need to fret, child. I've changed a tire or two in my day. Always kept a good jack in the trunk of my old Ford. He patted his pockets. Let's see if I still have my gloves. Panic clenched Sarah's gut. This wasn't part of the plan. The plan was to look distressed, get a sympathetic ear, and subtly steer him toward offering a loan until she could get to a bank. Mr. Abernathy playing roadside mechanic threw a wrench, a very large, greasy wrench, into the works. Oh, Mr. Abernathy, you really don't have to, she protested, a little too quickly. I wouldn't want to trouble you. I can call a tow truck. It's really no problem. He chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. Trouble? Girl, changing a tire is hardly trouble. Besides, he added, his gaze softening, it gives me something to do. Gets lonely around the house these days. He pulled a worn leather case from the trunk of his own car and unzipped it, revealing a neatly organized set of tools. Sarah watched him, feeling a confusing mix of frustration and guilt. His words about being lonely tugged at something inside her, a feeling she usually kept buried under layers of cynicism. Are you sure? She asked, her voice softer this time. Mr. Abernathy was already unscrewing the hubcap. Positive. Now, you just stand back and let an old man show you how it's done. Maybe you'll learn something. He worked with a quiet efficiency, his movements economical and precise. The metallic scent of the tools mingled with the dry, grassy smell of the roadside. He positioned the jack, its gears clicking softly as he raised the car. He loosened the lug nuts with surprising strength, then removed them completely, placing them carefully in the hubcap. Sarah leaned against her car, the hot metal pressing against her back. She watched him, the elaborate lie she'd concocted feeling heavier with each passing moment. The sun beat down, amplifying the buzzing of insects in the nearby field. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She glanced at her phone, considering calling Ben, but quickly dismissed the idea. What could he do? Mr. Abernathy grunted as he wrestled the flat tire free. He rolled it towards the trunk, his breathing a little heavier now. Here we go, he said, his voice slightly strained. Almost there. A glimpse of the past. Mr. Abernathy grunted, wrenching at the lug nuts. The rusty metal protested with a high-pitched squeal that set Sarah's teeth on edge. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, the gravel crunching under her sneakers. The sun beat down on her neck, making her acutely aware of how long this was taking. And how much she needed this to work. Blast it all, Mr. Abernathy muttered, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. Think I've over-tightened these. Probably the last time I had the tires rotated. He sighed, reaching into his back pocket for his wallet. He flipped it open, fumbling for a small, multi-tool. That's when she saw it. Tucked behind a worn photograph of a woman, presumably his wife, was another picture. Smaller, faded, almost sepia-toned with age, it depicted a young man in uniform. A soldier, definitely. His face was earnest, almost boyish, framed by the rigid collar of his olive-drab jacket. Sarah's heart stuttered. The uniform, it looked familiar. Not from her own life, but from somewhere. Mr. Abernathy finally wrestled the lug wrench into position. Got it, he declared, his face flushed with exertion. But Sarah couldn't shake the image. It pulsed at the edge of her vision, a nagging insistence she couldn't ignore. Against her better judgment, against everything she'd planned, she spoke. Excuse me, Mr. Abernathy. He straightened up, wincing slightly as he stretched his back. Yes, dear. That picture, in your wallet. The one of the soldier. She hated how her voice wavered, how desperate she sounded. His eyes softened, a faraway look clouding their blue depths. He carefully extracted the wallet from his pocket again, thumbing open to the faded photograph. He gazed at it for a long moment, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. That's my brother, Thomas, he said, his voice thick with emotion. He was a good boy. A good soldier. Sarah swallowed hard. Thomas. The name echoed in her mind, connecting to something buried deep. Something she wasn't ready to face. He was in the war, she asked, the question barely a whisper. Mr. Abernathy nodded slowly. Korea. He didn't come back. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken grief. He tucked the photo back into his wallet with a reverence that caught at Sarah's throat. I'm sorry, she mumbled, the rehearsed lines of her con feeling brittle and hollow in her mouth. The words felt wrong, horribly inadequate. He just shrugged, his eyes still fixed on some distant memory. It was a long time ago. But the memories, they stay with you. He returned to the tire, his movement slower now, his earlier energy diminished. The wrench slipped in his grip, clanging against the wheel well. Sarah stared at the ground, the weight of her deception pressing down on her. The picture, the name, the sadness in Mr. Abernathy's eyes, it was all blurring together, creating a knot of guilt in her stomach. The carefully constructed plan was starting to unravel, thread by thread, exposing the ugliness beneath. A hero's tale. It's quite a story, that one. Mr. Abernathy's voice was soft, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate with the weight of years. He gestured toward the photograph Sarah had almost used to blackmail him, the one depicting a younger, grim-faced Abernathy in uniform. Guilt gnawed at Sarah, a sharp contrast to the triumphant anticipation she'd felt only minutes before. She'd been so close to what? Robbing a hero? The thought made her stomach churn. It was chaos, he began, his gaze drifting to some unseen point beyond the dusty bookshelves that lined his living room. France. 1944, the hedgerows were thick, choked with death. You could smell the cordite and the fear, mostly the fear. He paused, his eyes clouding over with a memory that felt both distant and painfully present. We were pinned down. Machine gun fire ripping through the air like a swarm of angry hornets. Men were screaming, dying. It was hell, plain and simple. Sarah sat frozen, her carefully constructed facade of confidence crumbling. She hadn't expected this. She'd expected bluster, maybe anger. Not this raw vulnerability. There was this kid, Mr. Abernathy continued, his voice barely a whisper. Barely a man, really. Fresh-faced, looked like he should have been delivering newspapers back home, not dodging bullets. He was caught in the open, right in the path of a machine gun nest. I saw him go down. He shifted in his chair, a slight wince crossing his face. Everyone else was taking cover, trying to stay alive. But I couldn't just leave him there. Something just snapped inside me. I don't know what got into me. Mr. Abernathy fell silent, and Sarah held her breath, picturing the scene he described. The fear, the noise, the sheer desperation. She knew her brother, Michael, had been deployed to Iraq, but he never talked about it. She wondered if he had seen similar things. I ran, Mr. Abernathy said, his voice regaining a little strength. Ran right into the teeth of it. The bullets were flying so close, I could feel them whizzing past my ears. I got to him, pulled him behind a shattered stone wall. He was bleeding bad, real bad. Leg was a mess. He stopped again, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the glass of water on the table beside him. He took a slow sip, his eyes still fixed on the distant memory. I patched him up as best I could, used my belt as a tourniquet. Kept talking to him, trying to keep him conscious. Told him stories about home, about apple pie and baseball. Anything to distract him. He chuckled softly, a sad, hollow sound. Don't know if he heard a word I said. We were trapped there for hours, pinned down. But eventually, the fighting shifted, and we were able to get him back to the medics. They said he would have bled out in minutes if I hadn't gotten to him when I did. Mr. Abernathy looked directly at Sarah, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. He lived. He went home. That's all that mattered. The unraveling. Mr. Abernathy nestled into his armchair. The hearth fire popped and hissed, painting his benevolent features with flickering light. Poor soul was shattered, simply shattered. Shrapnel wounds, and I suspect a serious head injury. Clammed up tight, but possessed a stoic resolve. As if he'd stared into the abyss, yet refused to yield. Sarah, perched precariously on the sofa's edge, clasped her hands, feigning composure. Indeed. Resolute. Admirable. She manufactured a smile, thin and unconvincing. A striking young man. Cropped, raven hair. A determined chin. His complexion, almost ethereal in its pallor, a result of trauma, no doubt. So young to carry such burdens. Abernathy's gaze wandered, lost in recollection. He released a soft sigh. I recall tending his wounds, cleansing the debris. He endured it all without so much as a wince, just observed me with haunted depths in his eyes. Sarah's breath caught. Dark hair, strong jaw, a ubiquitous description. Countless soldiers fit that profile. She needed to remain composed. The conversation had to circle back to her objective. Oblivious to the tempest brewing within her, Mr. Abernathy continued, one detail remains etched in my memory. A birthmark. On his left forearm, near the elbow. a shape akin to a lunar crescent. Deep violet against his skin. The room's atmosphere seemed to solidify, pressing on Sarah's lungs. Her face lost all color, leaving her skin cold and slick. A crescent moon. Michael. He bore a mark identical to that, positioned in precisely the same location. It was the unique identifier she used to pick him out in a crowd, a purple lunar curve, a cherished secret. The facade she'd meticulously constructed began to disintegrate. The carefully rehearsed dialogue evaporated. The con, the prize, the fabrication she'd spun. All faded, rendered insignificant by the sudden, agonizing recognition. Sarah? Are you quite well? You've turned ashen. Mr. Abernathy's concern pierced through her mental fog. She struggled to speak, her voice lodging in her throat. She forced the words out, each syllable a weighty burden. The soldier. The one you aided. He nodded, a furrow deepening on his brow. Yes? What of him? Her vision swam. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and unbearable. She had to know. Confirmation was imperative. What was his name? Abernathy paused, lost in contemplation. He never shared it. Refused to divulge anything personal. Simply expressed his gratitude. Claimed I had granted him a reprieve. And then he was gone. The floodgates opened. A sob tore from her, a raw, anguished sound that resonated in the silent room. It was Michael. My brother, Michael. The words spilled out, a desperate, heartfelt admission. He's been missing for months now. We presumed him dead. She concealed her face in her hands, the weight of her transgression crushing her spirit. She had arrived intent on defrauding this kind, gentle soul, and all along, he had possessed the key to her greatest hope. He had rescued her brother. And she had intended to defraud him. Confession and compassion. The aroma of lemon polish hung heavy in the air, a scent that now twisted Sarah's stomach. Mr. Abernathy was watering his ferns, humming a tuneless melody. She watched him, the afternoon sun painting the dust motes dancing around his silver head. It felt unbearable, this charade. Mr. Abernathy, she began, her voice barely a whisper. He turned, his gentle blue eyes meeting hers. Sarah? Is everything all right? She shook her head, the lie she'd been living choking her. No. No, it's not. I have to tell you something. He placed the watering can on the windowsill, the clink echoing in the sudden silence. Come, sit with me on the porch swing. The rhythmic creak of the swing was a mournful soundtrack to her confession. She started haltingly, the words tumbling out like stones from a broken dam. She told him about the desperation, the gambling debt, that plan concocted in a haze of fear and adrenaline. She explained how she'd targeted him, seeing him as an easy mark. The shame burned hotter with each word. She couldn't meet his eyes, focusing instead on the worn wooden planks beneath her feet. When she finally finished, a sob escaped her lips. Mr. Abernathy didn't say anything for a long moment. The only sound was the wind rustling through the leaves of the ancient oak in his yard. Finally, he sighed, a sound full of a deep weariness. I knew, Sarah, he said softly. She looked up, startled, tears blurring her vision. You knew. He nodded. From the start. The questions you asked, the way you seemed to be. Sizing me up. It wasn't subtle, my dear. Sarah felt a fresh wave of humiliation wash over her. Then why? Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let me? Because, he said, his voice gaining strength, I also saw the worry in your eyes. The genuine kindness you showed, even when you were trying to deceive me. And, well, I'm not blind. I saw the way you looked at that picture of my Evelyn. The loneliness in your eyes mirrored my own. He reached out and gently took her hand, his touch surprisingly firm. Besides, he added, a hint of a smile playing on his lips, an old man gets lonely. It was nice having someone to talk to, even if our conversations weren't entirely truthful. Sarah's tears flowed freely now, a mixture of shame and relief. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I never wanted to hurt you. And after what you did for Michael." Mr. Abernathy squeezed her hand. "Michael is a good boy. He deserves a second chance, just like everyone else." He paused, then added, almost shyly, perhaps you do too, Sarah." He looked at her with such profound compassion that her heart ached. The lemon polish scent still hung in the air, but now it smelled less like a threat, more like a promise of a clean slate. An unexpected offer. Mr. Abernathy didn't shout. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply sat there, his pale blue eyes regarding Sarah with a startling calmness that made her skin crawl more than any angry tirade could have. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the frantic hammering of her own heart. She braced herself, expecting the police, accusations, maybe even violence. Instead, he sighed. A long, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of years. "So," he said finally, his voice raspy, like dry leaves rustling. "You were going to, what? Take advantage of an old man?" Sarah flinched. The truth, laid bare like that, was uglier than she'd imagined. I needed the money," she stammered, avoiding his gaze. "For my brother. He's sick." Mr. Abernathy steepled his fingers, the afternoon sun glinting off his silver ring. "And that justifies deceiving me." She shook her head, tears pricking her eyes. "No. It doesn't. I know that. I'm sorry." The words felt pathetic, inadequate. She wanted to disappear. Another silence followed, thicker this time, laced with Sarah's shame and Mr. Abernathy's quiet contemplation. She could smell the faint scent of lavender from the potpourri on the table, a domestic fragrance that felt utterly alien in this tense atmosphere. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Abernathy spoke. "How much do you need?" Sarah's head snapped up. "What? How much money do you need for your brother's treatment, was it?" He fixed her with a steady gaze. "Don't insult me again by lying." Doubt warred with a flicker of hope. Was this a trap? She searched his face, but saw only kindness? Pity? Something she didn't deserve. $300, she whispered. $300. He nodded slowly. "I can manage that." He stood, his joints creaking slightly. "Wait here." Sarah watched him disappear into another room, her mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. She'd expected anger, maybe jail, but not this. He returned moments later with a small, worn leather pouch. He counted out 3 crisp $100 bills and held them out to her. "I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" Mr. Abernathy's lips curved into a sad, gentle smile. "My wife, she always believed in giving people a second chance." And, he paused, his gaze softening, "I see a flicker of good in you, Sarah Miller. Don't extinguish it." He paused, then added, "Besides, I understand what it means to feel helpless." Sarah took the money, her fingers brushing his. A wave of guilt washed over her, so potent it almost knocked her off her feet. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll pay me back," he said, his voice firm. "Not because you owe me, but because you owe it to yourself. Find honest work, Sarah. Make something of your life." Tears streamed down her face now, blurring her vision. "I will," she choked out. "I promise. I'll pay you back every penny." He nodded, satisfied. "I believe you will." He gestured towards the door. "Now, go. And take care of your brother. Gratitude and redemption." He knew, Michael. He knew the whole time. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, the shame still raw. They were sitting on the porch swing, the rhythmic creak a counterpoint to the nervous energy thrumming through her. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn, painting the familiar landscape in hues of orange and purple. Michael, usually lost in his own world of sketches and muted colors, looked up, his brow furrowed with concern. Knew what? She took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle. About the scam. About everything. Mr. Abernathy, he let me go on, even though he knew I was lying. Michael's eyes widened. But why? I don't know, Sarah confessed, her voice cracking. Maybe he's just incredibly kind. Or maybe he saw something in me, something worth saving. All I know is, I was ready to take advantage of this sweet, lonely old man, and she trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of her guilt and the surprising well of gratitude that had sprung up in its place. He saved me, Mikey. Just like he saved you. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Michael was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. He had trouble remembering the fire, the terror, the feeling of being trapped. But he remembered the strong arms that pulled him out, the calm voice that cut through the chaos. He remembered a hero. We should thank him, he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. The next day, armed with a freshly baked apple pie, Sarah's attempt at atonement, they walked to Mr. Abernathy's house. The vibrant flowerbeds flanking his porch were a riot of color, a testament to his enduring spirit. He greeted them with a warm smile, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Sarah, Michael. What a pleasant surprise. The porch swing creaked as they sat, the silence initially thick with unspoken emotions. Sarah placed the pie on the small table between them. Mr. Abernathy, she began, her voice trembling slightly, I wanted to apologize. For everything. For lying, for trying to take advantage of your kindness. I was wrong, and I'm so incredibly sorry. He reached out and gently touched her hand. Sarah, child, there's no need for apologies. We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them. He turned to Michael, his gaze softening. And Michael, it's good to see you up and about. You're looking stronger every day. Michael, usually uncomfortable with direct attention, met his gaze, a flicker of something akin to trust in his eyes. Thank you, Mr. Abernathy. For everything. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of unspeakable gratitude. The conversation flowed easily after that, moving from the weather to Mr. Abernathy's prize-winning roses, and then to Michael's drawings, which Mr. Abernathy was eager to see. There was a comfortable ease between them, a sense of connection that transcended their age difference and the awkward circumstances of their initial encounter. As they walked home, the setting sun painting the sky in fiery hues, Michael spoke. He's nice. It was a monumental statement for him. Sarah smiled, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in weeks. He is, Mikey. He really is. A new kind of hope bloomed within her, a hope rooted not in deceit, but in genuine connection and the possibility of redemption. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but they wouldn't be walking it alone. They had each other, and perhaps, just perhaps, they had found a friend in the kind old man with the knowing eyes and the forgiving heart.